Holy cow, guys, this is bad. This is real bad. Well, guys, we've got some more issues coming out of Twitter. So the other day I was scrolling on my timeline, wasting my life away, and I came across this. Somebody posted, "This is insane. A legitimate artist bullied out of existence. For what reason? At what point does this kind of stuff start to deserve actual consequences? This platform is so unbelievably hostile to artists at this point, I don't even know what to say."
Wow. I honestly can't believe we're having to go through this crap again. It hasn't even been 30 years since the last time. Alright, well, I guess somebody's got to be the bad guy here, so I'll do it. This is probably going to be the most hated video I ever upload on this channel, but clearly some of y'all need to hear it, so let's go ahead and jump on in. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way early, and then I'll try to explain what I'm talking about. First, if you are one of the anti-AI warriors trolling around the internet, trying to fight off the evils of AI that are destroying the art world, well, two things. One, you're not the hero. If anything, you're the villain of this story, and that's not my opinion. That is a historically proven fact, which I will be happy to explain here in a minute. And the second thing, you are just straight up ignorant about art and the history of art, which is what I'm going to start with on this, because this hatred and demonization everybody is experiencing towards AI art, this is not something new. This happens over and over and over. Every single time a new art medium comes out, or a new style of art, new tools, regardless, this is a cycle that repeats over and over, typically every 30 to 40 years throughout all of recorded art history. It's honestly a pretty simple cycle, and it's easy to track throughout history. It always starts when a new barrier comes into the art community, whether it be prices or experience or availability of equipment or education or what have you. There's always some kind of barrier that causes a decline in the art community. The next part of the circle is something is released that overcomes that barrier, which makes art accessible and easier for new artists to join. Even experienced artists, suddenly their workload becomes easier. Next step of the cycle is reluctance and hatred. For all the people who have been successful in art, have put in the hours, have put in the years learning and mastering their craft, obviously this doesn't even just apply to art. This is in every industry on the planet. If you've spent half your life at your job, working hard, trying to perfect your work, getting good at it, and suddenly the new guy walks in the door and expects to be paid the same without putting in the work, obviously you're going to be upset about it. And that's pretty much what happens every time a new innovation comes along in art. So that is your next step in the cycle, is the hatred and reluctance that comes towards any type of change and innovation in the art world. The next step is acceptance. Typically, it takes around 5 years. There's been a couple of historical instances where it took closer to 10, but on average, it's about 5 years from the time that the level of hatred really reaches its peak to the point that it just dies off. Because no matter how much people hate it or complain about it or what have you, there's still going to be people mastering that craft, there's still going to be people working to master the new innovations and improve it. So within those 5 to 10 years, it gets better and better and better to the point that it's no longer slop, as people are calling the AI, and it's eventually good enough that people pretty much have to use it. I can't say have to, but it gets to the point where it becomes a good enough quality that you actually lose out against competition if you're not implementing it in various ways. And then the final step in the circle is the calm, where after everything has settled, people have accepted that it's not going to go away however much they hate it and complain about it. People start implementing it widely in their art, whether for personal or business use, and there is peace in the art community for typically 20 to 25 years. And then this cycle starts again as a new barrier to the entry for artists makes itself known. And that is just the cycle that goes round and round and round for all of recorded art history. And again, I'm sure there's already people out there waving their pitchforks, so just stick with me on this. So this is the one we're obviously dealing with now, is the AI generated art. Turn back the clock 30 years ago, the previous cycle, why I started this with, I can't believe we're doing this again, because I was there for the last one. I can already tell just reading posts online that 90% of y'all out there complaining about the evils of AI are under the age of 40, because you don't seem to understand that this has already happened multiple times. But anyone 40 and over should know better, because we lived through the last one. But yeah, so back in the mid-90s, we went through this exact same thing with digital art. There was no smartphones or tablets or any of that back then, but anybody who dared to try and draw a picture on their computer, it was blasphemy. There were people literally being chased out of art competitions and conventions for showing up with digital art. Oh, the horror. How can you call something drawn on a computer as art? That is nothing but digital trash. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can't decide if it's better or worse this time than it was back then. Because, yes, the harassment people are experiencing is a lot more common now, because Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, it's more accessible. So more people are going to see your stuff and more people are going to complain about it. But on the same time, it's a lot more toned down also. I mean, yeah, it's annoying to constantly see, every time I open YouTube, see people complain about tracing AI or AI slop or all the other comments. But at the end of the day, they're just harmless comments for most people. But back then, you didn't have any of that. The closest thing we had to social media was chat rooms on AOL. So if you were not actively following one of those, most younger artists that were first trying out digital art with Photoshop, or heck, a lot of people were still using Microsoft Paint at that point. But we're so excited to be learning this new tool and the possibilities of it. And they could show up at one of these an art contest somewhere, or even at a college where people were studying art, expecting to meet their peers and discuss how excited they were of using digital art, only to be met with this level of hatred that they had no idea was coming. I mean, y'all genuinely don't understand. I know several friends in the art world that were far more serious about drawing than I ever was. And several times I would find them in tears, because they would literally be chased out of somewhere by people yelling and screaming because they said they drew on a computer. So again, I can't say whether or not the hatred now over the AI art is better or worse than the hatred over the digital art in the 90s. Because again, it's a lot more common with the social media and everything. But because it's more common, it also doesn't get bottled up into that. But anyway, I'm going down this rabbit hole too far. Let's go ahead and just keep winding back the clock, give some other examples. So that was in the mid 90s. Let's roll it back another 30 years. Anyone care to take a guess? Photography. Think about that. Photography is now a staple in the art industry. Multiple people have made their livings with art studios over their photographs. But in the 60s, they experienced this same level of hatred. How dare you use that equipment to take a picture and call it art? That'll never be accepted as art. That's no effort. That is lazy. You did nothing to this. Yada, 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 yada. Y'all starting to see a trend yet? Okay, so maybe this is all examples just using technology, right? So surely if we go back further, it's not going to get any worse than that. How far do we want back to go? How far back do we want to go? You know what? Let's spin it all the way back. For a lot of people, one of the oldest of the traditional art mediums that people ever talk about is oil painting. But oil paints definitely were not the first medium. So for those that don't know, most paintings made before the 1500s were not actually done with oil paints. They were done with tempera paints, which is paints made using the yolk of an egg instead of oils. Now, oil paints were around for several hundred years and throughout the world in various cultures long before they became the most popular medium. So why were people still using egg yolks versus oils, and why did it cause such reluctance to switch over? Well, at the time, going back to our chart with our circular chart, at the time, the barrier the art world was facing that caused this transition from the tempera to the oil paints was mostly a change in cultural. Before that, people were more focused on painting deities and the heavens and more divine and supernatural inspirational images. But around the time of the Renaissance, it shifted to where people were wanting more realistic, down to earth, which is what caused the transition. So the main reason people were not using oil paints up to that point came down to the benefits of using egg. Water-based, non-toxic, permanent. Unlike oil paint, it will not yellow or change in color over time or grow transparent. You never need to use toxic paint thinners or solvents. Unlike acrylic, it has a proven track record going back hundreds of years, etc., etc., etc. So there was a pretty strong reluctance through most of the 1400s and into the early 1500s towards oil paint. Again, obviously that was a different world back then. There definitely was no social media. There was really no media of any kind. I mean, you'd have like a town crier would be about it. But like I said, the barrier at the time was a change in culture where people wanted more realistic paintings. And that is where the oil painting came in. Because despite all the benefits of the egg tempera, honestly, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. But one of the downsides to using the eggs is, despite all these benefits, it would dry very quickly, making it very difficult to blend into realistic colors, which is where oil painting shines, is the blending of the layers. And just like now, with all the AI art, digital art, cameras, etc., every time we go through the cycle, it faces a similar level of resistance. I mean, there's records of people talking about how it's a childlike material, about how it could never be treated as a real art material because it's so messy. You can't get the fine, sharp details that you can with the egg because it smears so much and blends so much. And again, it's kind of insane to me. After thousands of years of human history and hundreds of years of it being recorded, we are still having this same discussion every time there's a new innovation in the art world. And again, it's not just about materials. Probably one of my favorite examples in the history of art over this whole cycle is Impressionism and Claude Monet. Anyone from the art community would recognize that name. He is one of the most famous painters in history and renowned as the father of the Impressionism movement. But once again, it was a new style of art, so naturally it faced this similar backlash to what people are experiencing today. At the time, anyone trying to make it in the world of art in France, as he was required to get approval from the Salon, which is basically the biggest art organization in the country at the time. You could submit your works, and whether or not they approved or rejected it basically determined if you starved to death. Struggling artists had a whole new meaning back then. And, well, yeah, it took a long time before people first started recognizing his works. There's multiple biographies just discussing the struggle of his life, but let's go ahead and look at it. So Monet wasn't your average artist. He was a rebel, a visionary who refused to play by the rules of the art world. Monet had a deep love for nature, burning desire to capture its fleeting beauty. Passion became the foundation of his life's work, but the road to becoming the father of Impressionism was far from easy. So he was... Go ahead and take a look here at Sunrise. I'm sure everyone out there, whether you have anything to do with art or not, has seen this painting at some point. There's copies of it everywhere. But this right here is what I like. Because, see, again, with this cycle, there's one thing that it always happens. Somebody always comes up with some stupid nickname for it. AI slop, digital trash. And believe it or not, in the 60s, the term they came up with was the photo ghetto, talking about the small section of art. I mean, small section of the art community that would even consider using it. I'm not making that up. That was literally the nickname they got in the 60s, was the photo ghetto for anybody trying to pass photos off as art. I mean, seriously, can you imagine if these days someone just walked into a photography studio and demanded, "You need to go back to the photo ghetto where you belong"? I mean, that's nonsense, but that was the reality back then. But every time that we go through this, they come up with some stupid nickname. And I love the fact that Impressionism was that nickname. Monet's early works were met with harsh criticism. The term Impressionism, which is now associated with honor and prestige, was originally coined as a mockery of his painting, Impression Sunrise. Again, this painting, which is now one of the most famous paintings in history, they used as to come up with the derogatory term, and he just took it and ran with it. Said, "Sure, you can call it Impressionism. Hey, I'm coining that." So Monet is one of probably the artists I respect the most, because the entire world was against him, and he just said, "To hell with it. This is what I want to make. If y'all don't like it, I'm going to do it anyway." And he kept at it until he became successful. But the bottom line is, this is something that happens over and over and over and over. So hopefully y'all learned a little bit, but any of y'all out there complaining about AI art are ignorant. This is nothing unusual. This is a normal part of the art process. I guess I should have talked about this at the start. The current barrier that caused this all to kick off is time. Everyone's out there talking about how people using AI art are lazy. They don't want to put in the work. They don't want to put in the effort. Well, I hate to break it to y'all. Most people legitimately can't these days. I used to draw all day, every day, 100 hours a week sometimes, and I loved it. But the world has changed. The economy in most countries, especially the United States, is so bad right now. Most people are working 2 to 3 jobs just to make ends meet. At this point, the only people who can afford to invest the time and effort into mastering their craft when it comes to art are 3 categories. 1, somebody who does it for a living. 2, somebody who is living with their parents or at home, or possibly even a dorm, but somebody who's young enough and in a position where they don't actually have responsibilities. Or 3, a content creator, somebody on YouTube or Twitch that can use the drawing as part of their career. If you're not one of those 3 categories, you're not going to have time to master the craft, or even if you're already an established artist, you're not going to have time to draw what you're wanting to draw in most cases. That is the current barrier, is the economy, the world, everything has gone to shit to the point people physically do not have the time. And I am getting so tired of hearing the content creators and all of you young kids that don't have responsibilities and the people in the art industry complaining it's going to take their jobs. Yes, it will. I'm not denying that. But this is still something that is good for the majority of people. To be honest, I didn't even know this was going on. A couple months back, I tried using an AI model thing just to see what it would look like. And honestly, I thought it looked cool. I was always a fan growing up of like Blizzard cinematics and with World of Warcraft and Overwatch and on various games. So it's like, cool, I can make me a model real quick, just see what it looks like. And so I used it for an intro on some of my YouTube videos. And honestly, it deserved to be called AI slop. The free version of the software I used has horrible lip syncing. I like the way the model looked, but the mouth looked like it was going to fly off the face anytime you were talking. So I could understand people calling it AI slop in the comments, but that was the most downvoted videos I've ever had on this channel, just from that 30 seconds at the start and the end. And I didn't think anything of it. until that other video showed up. This one here that I was showing at the start of this video. That came across my feed a couple weeks later, and I'm not going to lie, that's been a couple months ago, and I am still sick to my stomach. I'm so pissed off about that. That's why I've waited a couple months to film this video, is I wanted to give myself time to calm down. Because, and this is why I said at the start that those of y'all who are doing this crap are going to be remembered as the villains. I'm not going to go back and cover the whole video or watch it here. I'm going to leave a link down in the description below if anyone wants to go watch the full thing. But what it boils down to is this poor guy over in Japan was bullied off the internet, fully deleted his account because someone thought he had been using AI to create his art and publicly harassed him until the account was deleted. Now, all of the evidence indicates, based on the fact this guy has been posting this similar art for literal years about this one character that he was a major fan of, that there's nothing to suggest he was using AI to begin with. And the guy did eventually have to come out and give a public apology over it. Doesn't change anything, though. The damage has been done. I'm getting mad just thinking about it. This is ridiculous. One, AI is already getting to the point where your average person can't tell the difference. And 99% of these so-called experts out there that want to pretend they know what they're talking about don't. They have no clue what they're talking about. But yet they're going to claim that they do just so they can justify harassing people. It does not matter whether they used AI or not. You don't have the right to go around harassing somebody online just because they used something you don't like. So at the end of the day, doesn't matter if you feel AI is good, evil, a tool, or trash, or whatever side of the argument you're on. It's not going to change anything. It doesn't matter. Your opinion does not matter. And it's about time some people hear that. Because everyone has these overinflated egos online nowadays, going around thinking that the world revolves around them, and they get to sit there and point fingers at everyone else. Nobody has the right to do that. Now, obviously, I mean, there's some that take it further than others. There's some that just go around typing AI slop in every video they see. It doesn't matter what level you go to. You've got no business doing it in the first place. That is still harassment. If you truly do not like AI, don't watch it. If you do not like AI, don't use it. If you don't want to see a future where people are constantly passing AI art off as their own work, do something constructive about it. Again, go back to the 1990s on this, where digital art first became relevant. There were so many, I don't even see, I can say so many, nearly all early digital artists were drawing anime and Dragon Ball Z. Because that came out at the same time the anime boom in America. Everybody in the country was watching DBZ. And most people were drawing DBZ characters. It got to the point where a lot of colleges were outright banning any digital art in your art portfolios because they got tired of seeing Goku and Vegeta every day, every time someone applied to an art college. But anyway, where I was going with that is it resulted in most of the IP laws we have now. The majority of existing intellectual property laws got revised in the later 90s with the introduction of digital art becoming mainstream because it was a lot easier for people to copyright works and use other people's characters. So do something similar to what we did with the IP laws back then. Start a poll, start a survey, get with your local mayor or congressman or whoever you need to, start I guess a GoFundMe, start a something to get things passed into law that will actually help the problem. If that is your concern, is AI art being sold off as real art or your quote unquote real art, then we need to go ahead and get it passed into law that people are required to say, hey, I made this using AI. That's fine. I have no problems with that. Nobody should have a problem with that because it is reasonable. But instead of going around harassing people on the internet, do something constructive with your time. Because if you're just going around doing this crap, you're a dick. That's all there is to it. You're not accomplishing anything. You are just a dick. But this is still something that is good for the majority of people. If you're out there complaining, you're sick of seeing all this AI-generated crap on YouTube. Well, the fact that it exists and exists in such abundance means there is a large audience for it. I agree it's low budget, it's low quality, a lot of it does look like slop. I will give you that. But I'm not in any position to complain because clearly millions of people, most likely kids, are enjoying it. I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't see how anybody could see that as a bad thing. I tell you right now, the few times I have gotten around to drawing recently, I'll tell you what, the model I'm using right now, how I made it is for the initial sketch. I can already hear the wheels turning for some of y'all. No, it's not AI generated. No, I did not trace AI. But to give myself a reference, I put a picture of myself into ChatGPT and basically like a filter app on your camera. I said, hey, turn me into a Pixar character. And I just used that as the reference for me to draw it from. You remember those? I forget what they're called. They're just the little wooden humanoid models you used to use for art references. You can do that on AI too. It is a tool. You should be able, it's no different than going to a job site and getting mad at somebody for using a power tool. No, you're lazy. You must do that by hand. The machine's doing the work for you. This is just stupid. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're one of the people who does like AI art, does enjoy looking at it or making stuff with it, whatever the case may be, if history is anything to go by, you've got 2 to 3 more years before this levels off and the hatred dies out. So, unfortunately, that is the world we live in. There's a lot of idiots out there, so probably keep it on the down low for the next couple years. If you do plan to start showing off your work with it, expect a lot of backlash. And just before we wrap up, I know there's plenty of y'all out there shaking your heads going, this is different. It's not the same thing. The computer's doing everything for you. It doesn't matter what you say. It's still just going to be AI slop. There's no effort involved. And a million more of the same complaints that we just hear over and over and over. But you know what? Those 2 complaints I just threw out there aren't even from this discussion. Those are word for word from the 90s. How many of y'all have gone out there and watched a how to paint or how to color on digital art tutorial on YouTube? And at some point in there, they were plugging their custom brushes. Use this brush, and I guarantee you'll always be able to get this result. Well, that's exactly what the issue was in the 90s, is these people had spent decades of their lives mastering the correct way to hold brushes or use the certain tools to achieve a desired result, and now you can just pre-program and it does it for you every time. I mean, that's one funny thing about this whole situation is every time I see a thread on Reddit or TikTok or anywhere else about this, the very first follow-up on most of them is to say, that's not art, this is real art. And then it'll show some badass looking animated scene, and it's just like, what are you talking about? 20 years ago, you would have been on the opposite side of this discussion. That true art you are trying to show off right there was the digital trash last time. It's like what's that meme? First time? Yeah, digital artists versus traditional artists. I mean, this whole situation is nuts. If y'all take away anything from this, Well, first off, thanks to anyone who's actually made it to the end of this video. I'm sure most people are, the second I said anything positive about AI art, they probably just dropped a mean comment down below and closed the video. Good for them, I don't care. But for those of y'all that did stick around, I appreciate it. And I hope y'all learned a little bit about art history along the way. But the only important things to remember here are, one, doesn't matter your position on it. You've got no right going around harassing people in the chat over using a tool you don't like. And the second, and this is probably the most important to me, is if you're sitting there hating on AI art, you have forgotten the most important lesson of art in general, which is there's no wrong way to make art. The only point of art is to make something people will enjoy. Whether it be something you enjoy looking at, something that inspires a memory, something that helps you accomplish something, I mean, again, if there are people who like AI art and want to buy it, there's no reason people should be upset that people are making it. And for those of y'all who are persisting through all this, managing to keep working on your skills with AI art, how to correctly modify the prompts, which softwares to use together, whatever's involved in it. If you're enjoying what you're making, keep at it. Historically speaking, like I said, it averages about 5 years from when the hatred really takes off, which in this case was early 2022, I think. So 5 years from there, you're looking at probably 2027 before the hatred fully goes away. But stick with it for those next couple years. If you enjoy it, keep at it. You will be rewarded in the end.